Hello, I'm back for another video. My name is Josh Kasich, and today is my The Last Exile Fam the Silver Ring review. Now this is an anime sequel to The Last Exile, which I've already done a review on this channel, which you should check out before watching this video if you have not seen that yet. Alright, now let's kind of get into what this sequel is about. Now, this sequel takes place on Earth, where the original series takes place on another planet that Earthlings went to, or one of the planets they were searching for a new place to live, as Earth was going through a dark time, and people had to leave on these ships called the Exiles. And in the show, there's supposed to be one exile left, hence why it's called The Last Exile. Now, in the context of the show, several years before, the dark time or whatever ended, and then after a few years later or so, people on the Exiles came back and took over areas and created new governments, taking land from people that once still lived there, because not all humans left. Alright? And so that's kind of now you have a bunch of these exiles that look like moons, like crescent moons, and actually their color and stuff actually look like they literally made them to look like moons. Kind of weird, but whatever. And they're just in the sky, like not necessarily in the sky, but they're like in space over the planet. And so, can you really call this The Last Exile anymore? Because there's multiple exiles, but that's not really the main point. Obviously, it kind of hurts the writing a little bit, not in the over the whole context of the title, but in itself, it kind of adds to the plot and the reasons why they're there. But let's kind of get to that. So we have this thing called the Ades Federation. They are a federation sought out on uniting the world to create peace between all people on the planet, but the way they're going about it is actually destroying governments, taking them in, and giving that land that were once belonged to different people, but were taken over by humans coming back to the planet. They're destroying them and giving that land back to the people that once lived there, and all that, and then everything is united. Now, the leader of the Federation is supposed to be Augustus Sara, but she's only 10, and the reason why she's the Augustus is because her mother, 10 years before, was killed during a thing called the Grand Race. Now here, the original Augustus actually got the entire world to be peaceful, friends and all stuff without having to attack people and doing all this type of stuff. And that's kind of how it's like, but unfortunately, she got killed, saving one of the main characters, or who was younger, obviously at this point, and so her entire plan went kablooey because some people just didn't like her idea of peace or whatever, and so it obviously didn't work out. So now Lucinia is kind of using Sara as a puppet to kind of try to the original Augustus's dream of uniting the world, becoming peace, but in his way of doing it, which is violence and destruction and all that type of thing. And the reason why he's that way, well, is because he's actually trained under the guild, or one of the guild members once, the villains from the first series. So he's very violent and all that type of thing, and that's just his way of doing it. And so under him and he was once a bodyguard to the original Augustus, and kind of under him, or someone working them, also learned under the guild, and he kind of follows Lucinia's path and whatever. Don't know his name, but that's you have that. But the main characters specifically are actually a character named Fam, and her best friend / adoptive sister, Giselle. Now Giselle isn't the one adopted. It is Fam or Fan, or goes by Fam is the one that's adopted. Giselle's father, I forgot his first name, but their last names are Cloret. Mr. Cloret, he and his, I guess, people working for him found a plane crashed with a woman inside, and the woman was dead, but she was protecting a baby who was obviously Fam, and then they took her in and adopted her. And what they're part of is Sky Pirates. They steal other flagships. Now, I describe what the type of ships they have in the Last Exile review. It's very kind of future fused with old is kind of the style to these ships, but I think I explained it better in the first video, and I definitely do recommend you watching. Like I said, I recommend you watching that video before watching this. Sorry about that, I got cut off. So where was I? Yeah, so I was talking about recommending you guys go watch that video, and now that's like back to where were we. So essentially what's going on now, they steal these flagships mostly from Ades Federations, and that's what they like doing. Now, the Fam and Giselle kind of run into what was supposed to be a peace negotiations with Turan, the Turan princesses, Liliana and Millia, trying to make peace negotiations with Lucinia, and Lucinia, obviously, this was just a trap to destroy Turan and everything. Now, they captured Liliana. Lucinia captured Liliana, but Fam and Giselle saved Millia, and then they go on Lucinia's ship to save Liliana. But then it turns out that Liliana, like Alfin from the first series, can control the exiles, and Lucinia uses her to use one of the exiles to destroy Turan. And unfortunately, Turan is destroyed. But Millia and Fam and Giselle decide to help Millia reunite her peoples and recreate the government. And so by doing that, they have to steal ships for her so they can attack the Federation. Now, at one point, they decide to go and steal what they call a ghost ship that's kind of been hiding around. And they go, and now also part of the Sky Pirates is Dio, and we don't understand how he got with the Sky Pirates yet, but he at this point in the story. But what's also weird is the fact that he lived from falling off his ship in the first series. Now, they didn't say this in the show, but off screen, it is written that when he fell off, eventually fell onto another ship, and then he was still kind of crazy, and he attacks. He battles against Klaus, and Klaus gets he brings Dio back, but he gets injured in the process. And we basically, his injury, unfortunately, which we see at the end of the show, because that's when Klaus actually appears at the end of the show. He's unfortunately injured, like paralyzed from the paralyzed from the waist down, so he can't use his legs, and he can't fly a van ship anymore. Although they're supposedly trying to work on that, trying to get him to fly again, and that's Dio's dream, is to help clear the skies again, so that it will be clear for Klaus to fly again in the sky. So that's kind of his idea, as we learn throughout the show. But when they go try to attack this ghost ship, it actually turns out to be the Sylvius, which is a ship actually run by Tatiana, who is from the first series, who was a van ship pilot for the Sylvana, and now her dream was to actually lead her own ship, and now she does have her own ship now. And her second command is Alistair, which was actually her navigator when she flies the van ship. So that's pretty cool that they have added those. They kind of added that into the story here. Now, it turns out that Dio's actually working for Tatiana and the Sylvius and infiltrated the Sky Pirates to see what they're about. And the whole point of the Sylvius being on Earth is to kind of spy and gather information for the Anatole Dithis government, led by Sophia Forrester, or Queen Sophia Forrester. Now, they basically, at first, they didn't really want to fam all of them on the ship, but they kind of they wanted to kind of create. They really wanted the Sylvius to help them fight off the government, and they're not really wanting to do that. But they tricked them into, but we could do it if we have a fleet, and so they get fam and them to steal I think 100, try to get 100 ships. I think it is something like that. And so most of the big point of this show is them going stealing ships from the Ades Federation. And that's kind of how it's going on here. So, tying to, let's see what happens. I'm trying to figure out what's next. So, eventually, they do kind of start stealing the ships, and they decided on the Sylvius to create the temporary, what's it called? The temporary, Turan government on the ship, with Millia being the queen. And eventually they gain another ships. They send out a paper to the people of Turan that she is still alive and fighting for them. And she gets a bunch of the old military to join up with her and her ships and stuff like that. And everything is going to plan. Then Vincent, who's also from the original show, who works right under Sophia Forrester and is in love with her. The show hasn't confirmed if they're together. But after Alex Rowe got killed, which is who Sophia loved, I think it makes sense for them to be together and stuff. So that's kind of there's that. And they all decided to create an alliance with Turan and Millia, and they did that by going into the sacred water and all drinking from this one thing, which I guess is their sacred thing that makes an alliance. But then, unfortunately, Lucinia shows up and with Liliana, and Liliana joins up with Lucinia because after destroying Turan and everything she's done, she decided just to give in and help them out. And plus, she was one of the characters that was there during the grand race where the queen died. Now, I can't remember if it was either her or Millia that she saved and was killed in the process. And who was there was Fam and Giselle. So Fam and Giselle's dream is for another grand race in which they could participate. Now, we find out later that if Giselle's father and his navigator actually won that race, but in the chaos of the attack, Mr. Clorette's partner, navigator, was unfortunately killed. And also trying to save some people, so there's kind of that type, a lot of connection tissue there. Now, after their next plan is to attack, they said that they're trying to basically Liliana basically says that she's the real queen, and a lot of the Turan military comes with her, leaving Millia and them alone, and instead of kind of join and taking a bunch of their ships that they helped steal back with them. And Liliana, basically Millia and the Sylvius wasn't having it, so they were obviously attacked, and it looks like they were destroyed, but they're not, they're okay. Now, Alvin is also with them, and in the middle of all this, they're also trying to take Alvin because she can also control the exiles, and the second bodyguard who now works for Lucinia goes after, and he fights Dio and all that type of thing. Now, there's actually several points where the Sylvius gets kind of not in a good shape against the government, but then obviously Lucinia and them go try attack Glacius, which is very guarded off with their defense is really good and everything. So this is not working out pretty well. They were able to kind of stop the Federation a little, fight off the Federation, but Fam, Millia, and Giselle, they kind of landed in territory of the Glacius, and where they're kind of taken back to the village or whatever, and they're being taken care of by a woman named Ryan, they become friends and stuff, but then the Federation comes back and they use the exiles, and unfortunately they do destroy Glacius and killing a bunch of people, but Ryan and a bunch of them live, and Fam and Giselle and Millia already left at that point. But then what happens next is pretty cool. So the Sant, who's also she is one of the leaders of the different fleets in the Federation. So you have Fleet 1 and all that stuff. She really cares about. She doesn't like what Lucinia's doing. He's obviously not doing what the original Augustus is doing, and he's lying to Sarah and using her as a puppet. And she goes behind Lucinia's back and talks to Sarah and tells her the truth and everything. And so now they join up, and she goes. They don't want all this violence. They want to. That's not what Sarah wants. She doesn't know that was what happened, but that's not what she wants. She wants peace, just like her mother and everything, and exactly the way it plays out. So they kind of go to Glacius, find Ryan, who now is kind of the leading of the Glacius because everyone else parachute and all of them, and then obviously what's left of the Millia Turan government and everything. They go and try to fight off the other fleets. The first fleet is led by Sadri, who turns out to be the grandfather of Fam, and Fam's mother and him kind of had a fight, and so she left, and so they never met. Now, they were able to negotiate peace with Sadri and all of them, even though he's very with Lucinia and all of them. And then they had this little party where they did meet, but they obviously didn't know each other. But he figured out like right away that she is his granddaughter. But unfortunately, he never really says that. Now, Lucinia and Liliana, they go to this area and they find a old Last Exile, like the first exile, but like the most powerful exile, or I keep saying the Last Exile, most powerful exile that never got finished, but it has a huge amount of power. And they were going to use it to really gain the peace and everything, because like no one wants to battle against that. Now he comes back and immediately, like because of this peace and stuff, he has no choice but to give in to Augustus Sara. And everything was going right and peaceful until Diane tries to shoot Lucinia, and Liliana jumps in the way, and she dies, and Millie gets the power of the exile. And then then Lucinia kills Vasant and captures Augustus Sara, and they escape to go to the exile. And apparently Sara also has the power of the exile, and they use it to go into battle. And now we have Sophia and the Anatare Dipsis shows up to help what's the left of the Rebel Federation, and the Silvius also shows up. Now Silvius, Millia, basically Tatiana goes and Alistair decide to go and battle on the into a van ship, so they give Miliana control of the Silvius, which is pretty cool. Not Miliana, Millia. To command the Silvius, and the huge battle begins against the Lucinia, his Ades Federation, because Sadri left with them, and some other people are with Lucinia, and like I said, a huge battle. But Giselle and Fam take a van ship. Dio has to fight off that one guy. I forgot his name, but like under Lucinia, who's also part of the guild, and Dio defeats him, kills him, and saves all of them. And they also go into the exile, and they're all there trying to save Augustus Sara. And they were able to after a lot of battling inside, because the ship also has like kind of cells in a way. It's the best way to describe it, that they battle against all those ships trying to get in, and they were able to they were able to fight that off, and they were able to save Augustus Sara, and they escape. And in the middle of the battle, because the exile was not finished, it starts falling apart and everything, and Sadri decides to stay with Lucinia And as the Exile destroys, both Lucia and Sadri die. And then the person under Sadri informs Fam that that was her grandfather, and they never got to really talk and hang out and really have that bond, which is I find unfortunate. I really would have liked that if they've done that, but that's kind of how it is. And then the show ends with a grand race, and as is probably predicted that would happen, and everyone's at peace, and Fam and all, and Giselle enter it to try to win, and that's pretty much it. We do get to see Klaus, and he's in a wheelchair, and we see Levy and all of them, and so that's pretty cool. So overall, that's pretty much the entire story. So I definitely enjoyed this show. Like I really liked it a lot. But unfortunately, I just don't think it is as good as the first series. There's some writing problems, and it's just not as good. But despite that not being as good, like I said, I still enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed all the characters. I thought Millia, Giselle, and Fam have a very interesting dynamic. I like what they've done in the show and their personalities. I think that was really cool. I liked how they try to make friends with Diane, and even though they're very defensive and fightful and everything, but they eventually become friends. And although Diane I forgot to mention, was arrested after dying, she eventually does get free to help out in the battle and everything. And so it all really does, but yeah, I like those characters, and I liked all the, as always, the characters that did come back. I liked what they've done in the show, and I thought they were really interesting. And yeah, like I said, I liked all that. So I definitely do recommend this anime if you have not seen it. I recommend both. Definitely watch The Last Exile, the first, and then this one second. And I definitely hands down, I definitely recommend the first series or season or whatever. And hands down, if you watch anime, you need to see The Last Exile. And this, I recommend it as a sequel. I hope maybe they'll make another series or season, because there's a lot of potential with this series that I just feel like is left undone. That's just me. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts on the show, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you're new, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you're notified for my next upload. My YouTube channel, website link, my Twitter, my Snapchat, and Instagram are all in the description as always. And thank you. Goodbye.